Namaskaram. Hello, excuse me. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sree Iyer. Joining me today is Mayank Chaubey ji. Namaskar ji. How are you?
Namaskar, Sree. I am fine. Thank you.
Sir, you have been involved with a lot of students, children, high school kids, middle school kids, and so on. So I thought yesterday when we were discussing what shall we talk about today, why don't we start talking about, Atma Nirbharta is not something that only applies to some, it applies to all of us. Because if you start that thing as a young child, then you are set for life. You tend to see what can I do for myself before you go and seek help from somebody else. It's a very noble trait. So I thought I would request you to share your thoughts on this concept and how India can become a much more confident and self-reliant nation. Over to you, sir.
Good morning to everyone. And when Iyer shared the topic with me, I really jumped with joy. And the topic, it really touched my heart, inculcating Atma Nirbharta in our schools. So the thought of Atma Nirbharta, Sree, was put into my mind by a gentleman known as Dr. Prabhat Ranjan. Dr. Prabhat Ranjan has been the Vice Chancellor of 𝗤𝗍𝗘𝗏 International University in Pune. He is a renowned nuclear scientist, and he has been working with the Ministry of Science and Technology. He was part of a think tank known as 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗏. He was instrumental in authoring a document known as India Vision 2035. So he is an alumnus of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 School, if you have heard of that name. So it's a school in Jharkhand. It was, I think, formed in the year 1954 or somewhere in the early 50s. And this school has a typical methodology of imparting education. And what I learned from Dr. Ranjan was that students there, they used to work hands-on. And Sree Iyer, this school has been instrumental in providing India with IAS officers, and the numbers, they swelled to 300. More than 300
Wow.
IAS officers have been produced by the school. More than 50 Indian Foreign Service officers have been produced by the school. There's a former cabinet secretary who is an alumnus of this school. So you see, this school has produced gems. And the beauty of the school lies in the fact that the children, they come to the school, the first hour is devoted to cleaning the entire school. The students themselves take it upon themselves to clean the entire school. So this is how things work. And I remember Dr. Ranjan telling me that the bane of our country is services. He said the moment we shift our focus to working with our own hands, this country will blossom like anything. And Sree Iyer, today when you said this topic, my initial thought went to Dr. Prabhat Ranjan. I'm going to share this video with him, and I'll very proudly say that I had the opportunity of sharing many moments with him and learn quite a lot from him. He writes his own blog, and he's a gem of a person, a treat to interact with. So coming down to the topic per se, that is inculcating Atma Nirbharta in our schools. Now what is happening is that our education is primarily focusing on inculcating skills in our students. Okay, skill development is a good thing, but there's a requirement of changing the mindset of the students. That is very important. So if in case we can run the slides, and in the previous session, if you recollect, this was regarding the Indians who come back to the country, what are the job opportunities which lie for them. And I got a lot of feedback from my friends that they wished that this was presented in a form of a presentation, so that they could take screenshots, they could share the presentation, they could understand better. Because I was going on and on like an engine, and people, they could not comprehend as to what was being said. So I devoted some time, took the help of artificial intelligence also, and came out with this small presentation. So what Atma Nirbharta says that the schools should be the foundation of self-reliance. Catch them young. That should be the focus. And there's a requirement of shifting the mindset of the students. So they have to move beyond normal classroom thinking, and they should focus on independent thinking. and then they should take actions which will transform this thinking into something material on the ground, and they should be contributing on ground to national development. As to how we go about it, we'll be seeing in the subsequent slides. Okay, so how do we do that? We are supposed to integrate our self-reliance into the curriculum. Anything which goes on in this country has to go into the curriculum. Sree, it was very heartening to note that NCERT at last has made amends. Earlier, we were reading history that was just history of Indians being bashed, Indians being subjugated, being treated as slaves, downtrodden, and whatnot. And as a student, I used to feel that how come we have been persecuted for years and years together, still our culture is vibrant and thriving. That means we must have lost the war, but definitely we won a few battles also. And that is how Sree Iyerji sits on this platform and he speaks in Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, English, every language. He proudly shows us his tilak or tripund, and I am sporting my kalava or Raksha Sutra on my hand. So if this thing has survived ages, that means we would have definitely won many a few battles, not just one or two. So this thing has been now brought into our textbooks. Instead of glorifying the persecutors, we have started glorifying our own heroes. The concept of hero has always been misplaced. What we have been thinking of hero is somebody from Bollywood, he becomes a hero. Somebody who plays cricket becomes a hero. Sorry. People who have laid down their lives for this country, they are the real heroes. People who fought battles, who fought wars, they are our heroes. Those who were there to upkeep our tradition and culture are our heroes. So what is required to be done is we are required to get down to problem solving, and then we are supposed to innovate. And then finally, we have to understand the indigenous knowledge systems. Focus should be on the local crafts, on Indian scientists and entrepreneurs, and we have to highlight their native genius. That is the requirement of the day. So I'll shift to the next slide. Now, what are we required to do is we are supposed to promote skill-based learning. So skilling is one part, and to base that skill on Indian systems is the other part. So the focus should be there on the Indian systems. You keep on developing the skills, but yes, your focus should not be lost as to how you are supposed to develop those skills. So what does this methodology say is that you're required to conduct workshops that focus on practical skills, and the student should be helped by inculcating the feeling of independence. This will be laying the foundation of Atma Nirbharta. So workshops are required to be conducted on coding, robotics, to be future ready. While speaking of traditions, we should not be losing focus on our future. So there should be workshops on coding and robotics, which are future ready. Practical skills like carpentry and organic farming should also not be lost. So yes, knowledge of fertilizers is required to be there, but the focus should be there on organic farming. So that is what is required to be inculcated in the students. So the student should learn how to make, how to fix, or how to create something which is tangible. The moment you do something with your own hands, a sense of achievement comes into the student. And then he becomes self-reliant in a very initial phases. And once he grows up to be an adult, he has that confidence that yes, whatever he does with his own hands will be successful, and he will be able to carry it through forward. Now, how do we encourage creative and critical thinking? So what I have done is I have made these circles which are progressive in nature. So creativity is the soul of innovation. So your mind should be thinking. And how should your mind be thinking? For anything, you should be questioning. Now, if you recollect the old ancient Indian system, it always questions. We get into 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, we have dialogues, we question things. And the beauty of the Indian culture system is that we always question, and the questions are not taken in a negative sense. The questions are always treated as coming from a jigyasu who is keen to learn something. And this questioning leads to creativity. And from creativity comes innovation. And finally, you come out as a good product. So the teachers must cultivate classrooms where curiosity and new ideas are celebrated. Students are questioning, the teacher should feel satisfied. Yes, the students are questioning. That means whatever I am imparting is being fed into the brains of the students, and now they are reasoning and questioning the teachers. There's a requirement to celebrate our own role models. And the biggest role model which is in front of us and which has been in recent history, you can say, is Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, the missile man. So who better a person than Dr. Kalam to think of, because he's a visionary, he's a scientist, he's a former president of the country, and simple living, high thinking, that was his fundamental, and which has to be understood by everybody. Then we have the case of Sridhar Vembu, and then what we should do is we should highlight the achievements of the local entrepreneurs, local achievers, local innovators. And I'm very happy that the government is working on startups. Many startups are now turning into unicorns. In the defense sector, Sree, you'll be very happy to note that the Ministry of Defense is giving funds to various startups who are creating items for the defense forces. So the government, in a very concentrated manner, is focusing on developing skills within the country. And in a true sense, we are moving towards Atma Nirbharta at a very good pace. And that's a very satisfying pace. We are required to link education with community impact. And that is very important. Now, in our schools, this is something that we part of a curriculum. How do you go about this item? Now, what we do is that you identify a local problem. The example that I've given is of a local village pond. Now, the local village pond, it requires cleanliness. So there are water quality issues. So how do you design a solution to that? You create low-cost filters. You clean the pond with your hands. You take out something which is solid from the pond. Then you apply filters. And then what you do is, after doing this activity, you make the villagers aware as to how this pond is required to be cleaned. So what happens is that the student has a interaction with the locals, with the villagers. So communication also develops between those being educated and those who are staying there. So the society is bound in a very tight fashion. So that's a requirement of the day. How do you link education with community impact? And next is the integration of financial and emotional literacy. Now, this is very important. Money makes the mayor go. So the children should be taught as to how they should be budgeting their expenditure, how should they managing the money which is being given to them. This financial literacy is very, very important, and it should become part of the curriculum. And then the student will be able to understand as to what is budgeting at a bigger scale, how expenditure is carried out, and then he would be able to suggest various remedial actions if in case he finds something wrong. Because in the initial stages, he has been told by the teacher, he has been encouraged by the teacher to question things. And when he starts questioning, he becomes creative. So that creativity comes into financial literacy also. So the student becomes financially literate, and he analyzes the problem. Then he finds a solution to any issue. The second thing is emotional resilience. That is very important. So what happens is, nowadays, if you see, Sree, pardon me saying that, but the Western education which is coming into the society, what happens is that if in case you take part in a 100-meter race in a school, there are 10 participants. So every participant is given a consolation prize. That, okay, you have participated, you will get a prize. So there is no incentive for the person who is supposed to come first, and there is no incentive for the person who's coming last, because the person who's coming last would finally want to be the person who's coming first, because the position of first is being incentivized. So there's a requirement of incentivizing this position, and to make people understand that somebody will be coming 10th or 9th or 8th also. So what happens is, at a very early stage, the student understands what exactly is a failure. So there's an importance for a student to understand that failures exist in life, and how should he or she absorb failures in life, so that There are no setbacks. There are no cases where a student commits suicide or he goes into depression because of gaining less marks. So that resilient student has to be made. That is the call of the day. And finally, what I feel is there is a requirement of instilling a feel of national pride. Now, what we should understand is that Bharat, our country, can and will stand on its own feet, and this idea should flow very, very naturally into the minds of every student. So he should be very clear that our country, what we used to say is Mera Bharat Mahan. So he should have that understanding. Yes, Mera Bharat was Mahan, is Mahan, and will always remain Mahan. So that thing should be ingrained in the mind of the students. And how will it do is naturally you are being lived with your values. You live with your values, you understand what the values are, and these values no more remain slogans. They are transforming into your real life. Now, what happens is there's a simple belief that every assembly and classroom discussion should echo the belief. Now, every discussion in the school going on, every assembly in the school, the student should have the belief that India can and will stand on her own feet. The moment this idea comes into the mind of the student, you will have a society which will be thriving with the idea of Atma Nirbharta. So that is the importance of instilling that feeling in the students. So I believe it has been a long sermon. Atma Nirbharta, this is how you can achieve Atma Nirbharta. I have drawn a wagon wheel just to make ourselves understand innovation, patriotism, self-confidence, independent thought, and responsibility. So this is how we can inculcate the idea of Atma Nirbharta. These are the core essence values of Atma Nirbharta. And finally, I have come to the end of this chota sa presentation. And what I have put is my own profile on the slide. The reason being that I am busy in bringing this idea to the schools. Already covered 2 schools here, 4 schools in the pipeline. So I'm going from school to school, discussing this with children. The idea of Operation Sindoor, how successful we were, what is Atma Nirbharta, and various other issues. So when you gave me this topic, it really resonated with my thoughts, and I was very happy when I learned that we're going to discuss this topic. So I made this presentation, and I can share this presentation with you or any of the viewers who are watching. Thank you, Sree. Yes, please.
Viewers, Mayank ji, thank you so much. And Mayank ji did not know the topic until very late last night. And look at how quickly he has put together such a stunning and compelling presentation. And it resonates at every slide. And and the example he gave of that school in Jharkhand, why can't the other schools be like that? Of course, there will be more competition to get into IAS program. But at the same time, you're going to make children who are going to be confident. They know what they want in life. What better gift can we give them? That is a big takeaway here. And thank you so much, Col Mayank Chaubey. And unfortunately, we don't have a great audience today. I don't know why. I even saw the notification come. Viewers, if you could just share it amongst your own children and friends and family, I would really, really appreciate it. I know Colonel Saab will, circulate it, but this is not enough. Everybody, we need to start working and thinking along these lines. Because once you become Atmanirbhar, then your mohalla becomes Atmanirbhar, your state becomes Atmanirbhar, your country becomes Atmanirbhar, your world becomes Atmanirbhar. Thank you so much, sir. Namaskar.
And before we sign off, Sree, I must compliment you on selecting a topic which is really very important. What we do is we discuss geopolitics, we discuss politics, we discuss defense matters and whatnot. But we generally don't touch upon the topics which concern our children and education. So my compliments to you, Sree, for such a beautiful thought. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Bye.